each layer that I put on, I have to heat and fuse it to the layer behind it. So does that make sense to everybody? So I'm brushing on a layer on top of a cold layer, heating it up, and sinking onto that layer, and then I can paint on it again. So every single time you see like a gradation change in the boats, like for example here, so this is one layer, this is probably 2 layers back, maybe 4 layers back, and that's probably about 10 layers back. So it kind of gives an impression again of time. These things have existed at different states. They weren't all just placed there at once. It's taken a period of time for them to kind of be where they are and come into reality. What was interesting in trying to think about how I was going to make the boats was a challenge, because I didn't want them to be just someone else's boats that I just copied and wouldn't have had the same meaning to me. So I did a lot of research. I found a lot of different photos, and I started to kind of combine pieces of them and sketch pieces of them loosely. And then from the sketches, I created like a really finely detailed drawing. And each of the actual drawings are about this big of the boats. So they're not huge, but they're actually larger than this. And then through that process, I actually take those and I was able to use a printmaking transfer process. So you actually take them and you actually Xerox them. And these are actually Xerox transfers that are put in it. You take the Xerox and you burnish it into the wax really aggressively, really hard, all over. And then you have to very carefully go back and wet the back of that and remove all the paper and pulp without removing the toner. And after that's done, you heat it up, and you have to heat it up in such a way that you control the image from just breaking apart and dispersing. Or you can allow that to happen. So in some spots, like, I didn't want everything to be just perfectly crisp or perfectly there. I wanted some things to be able to be kind of disintegrating, because I felt that it was really important to kind of let that pervade in the sense that, like, maybe this is a scene, or maybe this is one boat that's been through this one spot hundreds of times on some type of passageway or some type of process, or carrying some type of good, or doing some type of exploration. So since they're not all hard-edged, some of them are allowed to be more of a memory or a thought. I wanted a sense of distance. It didn't have to be like a deep distance, because that wasn't what the piece was about, but I also didn't want it just to be flat. And without the waves in here, and without the different textures, so I left the bottom really organic, and then the top I actually went back and heated a clean edge on top. And as soon as I did the clean edge versus the organic edge, it really started to get a lot more interest and distance for me. You could imagine where if this was like this here, and they matched, it would really bring the two edges together, and they would kind of become one plane. But I feel like this allows us to fold back, so that was the thought process behind that. So the woodcuts were important for me to show because they really impacted how I did this. This is one of the blocks for the woodcuts, and it's all done with Japanese woodcut tools. There were a lot of things like adding the waves in and scraping it, and even doing the horizon line the way I did it, or cutting the wood the way I did it. I hadn't anticipated doing any of those things. And so for as much planning as you can do, or as much as the idea is there, really all I started with was just this image of boats, and everything else just kind of slowly built on itself. And hopefully by allowing all that to be seen, if you look at it more than just what's on the surface, what am I looking at, start to think about, oh, this is in front of this, and this is in front of this, and this layer came first. If this layer was here, then these things couldn't have been here. All the way down to the base, it's kind of a way for you to come into my studio without me being there, and maybe think about art differently. So art once you release it isn't about you. It's about what the viewer feels, and if it makes you feel something, then the artist is successful, I feel like.